You're listening to Rookie Pirate Radio, the official anime and manga podcast for InBetweenDrafts.com. I'm John Negroni.
I'm Travis Hymas.
And today we're doing a manga recap of One Piece chapter 1092, titled Kuma the Tyrant's Holy Land Rampage. And Travis, I have a feeling you're going to be going on a rampage when it comes to bragging about your correct predictions last week. Congrats.
Oh, you know it. You know it.
As usual, we're going to be discussing spoilers for the One Piece manga up until this chapter. So if you have not yet read chapter 1092, be sure to do so now for free on the Viz website or the Shonen Jump app, linked in the show notes as always. And remember, all new One Piece chapters are available to read for free up to 3 weeks after their official release, or whenever you want if you are subscribed to Shonen Jump, which we are, and we do recommend. So Travis, I know we got a lot of One Piece stuff to talk about. We've been talking about the live action. We've been kind of dancing around. We've been having a lot of One Piece fun, but we're back in the manga recaps, and I know the listeners, they have a lot to talk about, don't they? And do they have a place where they can talk about One Piece with us?
Man, that's a mighty fine question. Let me just check my notes here, see if I can. Oh, you know what? There is something. I got something right here for you. We do. We've got an email address. Did you know that?
I didn't know we were that hip at the times.
We do, yeah. We have an email address. We are so hip with 2010. We're just like the Scott Pilgrim cast in that all of our relationships can be revived with a single email. And you can reach out to us at rookiepirateradio@gmail.com.
Sorry, Travis. I spaced out because I was thinking of Knives Chow, and that's your fault. What was that email address again?
That email address again is rookiepirateradio@gmail.com.
Wow. But wait, Travis, the email's fun. I love sending them and receiving them. But what if I want to talk to multiple people from the Rookie Pirate Radio community all at once? Is that even possible? Probably not.
Are you saying like some sort of, I don't know, Discord server maybe?
Oh, you mean to have discourse? That's something that exists. I would need a link, though.
Yeah, you would. And you wouldn't, know it. If I look here in my pocket, I've got a link to the In Between Drafts Discord server, which is in your show notes now. I'm just going to drop it in there for you. It wasn't there before, I promise. But it's there now, and you could pop in there and join up with us on the In Between Drafts Discord server. We talk about One Piece, both spoilers and non-spoilers alike, so you can see how your friends are enjoying the live action without them risking spoilers. But we also talk about all kinds of other things: music, movies, games, TV, and more. Anything that's covered on InBetweenDrafts.com, you will see a channel for in the Discord. We also have other channels. I don't talk about this every time we do this bit, but we also have channels where people can just show off their own creative work. So every once in a while, our games editor will pop in there and drop some daily doodles in, and it's always fun. And we'd love to see you show off as well. So stop on by and show us what you've got.
If you scroll back in time far enough, you'll see my painting of Boji that I did. I still have it hung up by the hearth for all to see. And in the Discord server, obviously, where everybody hangs out. And you know what my favorite thing on the Discord is? It's going to be all of the petitions and signatures for the renaming of the website to be In Between Drafts. I'll say it again, Travis, because I think you were laughing to yourself and you probably didn't even hear me. In Between Drafts, the new name of the site.
I mean, it could happen with enough demand. That's all I'm going to say.
Let's talk about One Piece 1092. And I've got these main beats here, Travis, and there are a lot. I'm going to try to do this in record time. I'm not as fast as Kizaru, but I will try to be. Okay, here we go. We have another reader request. No cover story, sadly. Not sure if we're going to get one in this arc at this point, but we'll see. But yeah, we do get to see Jinbei being smushed by giant cuddly remoras. So, I mean, I'm not really complaining, honestly. All right. We kick things off on the previous day. So this is when Kuma, the invincible slave, as he's called in this chapter, he's called many things in this chapter, he's reached the top of Mary Joa. Last we saw him, he was climbing still, and he's now rampaging through the city, the holy city, as the title suggests. So some soldiers are trying to capture him with chains, but Kuma unleashes an Ursa shock that wipes out a huge piece of land, only for us to see the silhouette of Fleet Admiral Akainu facing him down, bewildered over Kuma's historic destruction, as he calls it. Interrupting him, however, is a celestial dragon who uses this opportunity to complain to Akainu about the food shortage, or in this case, a lobster shortage, that is happening in Mary Joa. This was set up in the previous Sabo flashback chapters. All right, the celestial dragon, who also complains about his injuries, commands Akainu to kill Kuma, and Akainu asks Kuma where he's trying to go, considering he lost his free will a long time ago and is no different from a dead man. That's when Akainu uses his Hellhound move against Kuma, burning off part of his face, and brutally so. But Kuma simply runs off after this and warps out of the area, as was apparently his intention all along. Akainu flashes back to a moment when he had Jewelry Bonnie in chains, explaining to her that Kuma's mind will not return, and that he also volunteered to be reborn as a weapon of war, to which Bonnie argues he would never do so. We return to Egghead Island in the present day, although I don't know if it's like the present day, because the narrator kind of went forward at time at one point. It doesn't matter. We're back where we were in the last chapter, and we see the Pacifista Mark IIIs laying waste to the mechanized sea beasts, allowing many of the Navy forces to land on the island and secure the area around the labo phase. We cut to the fight between Luffy and Kizaru. Kizaru notes that he can see why Luffy, who is now in his Snake Man Gear 4, how he was able to defeat Kaido. Kizaru asks Luffy why he would step in to protect Vegapunk, but Luffy shoots the question right back, asking why Kizaru would want to kill the Apple Man. Great timing with the iPhone event, huh? Kizaru says he doesn't want to kill Vegapunk, and then he flies super far away before unleashing a distance acceleration kick that takes out both Luffy and the Vega Force 1, the big robot that was carrying the Sunny, in a single move. We even see Kizaru briefly reminisce about the day Vegapunk told him about the invention of this robot. The Vega Force 1 explodes, but Frankie, Lilith, and Bonnie manage to get away, and 1,000 Sunnies still apparently seems to be well enough intact. Bonnie confronts Kizaru, who remarks on how fast kids these days grow. But your Bonnie theories away, we don't have time. And also questions why she's helping Vegapunk, whom she previously hated, but she claims her wrath has a different target now. She tries to attack Kizaru, but he sends her flying with a kick toward the barrier that ends with a very suspicious explosion. Frankie tries to attack Kizaru in retaliation, but Kizaru is already gone. He's just about in the control tower right when Vegapunk, Atlas, and Edison have cracked the code to the barrier. Kizaru wants to end Vegapunk quickly, but before he can do anything, giant Gear 5th Luffy bursts into the control tower, grabs Kizaru. He has a ton of damage on him, apparently because he had to go through the barrier twice, and the chapter ends with the Drums of Liberation apparently waking up the giant ancient robot on Egghead Island, the one that attacked Mary Joa centuries ago. No break next week, I believe.
Correct. We did it. We got there.
Boy, oh boy. I mean, we've got Kizaru, we've got Akainu. Akainu did something. More Kuma stuff. It seems like we're finally getting close to something being explained with Kuma. It looks like something's going to be explained with Bonnie. She's got to still be alive, but is going to be pretty damaged after what we saw going through the barrier did to Luffy, right? Big chapter. No Zoro, no Sanji. They're presumably... I assume Sanji did go down to help Zoro, because where else would he be? It's kind of weird that he doesn't show up, right? In the control room, unless he was in the background and I missed him or something. But I don't think I saw him. But yeah, this is major. I mean, Gear 5th Luffy up against Kizaru. Kizaru clearly does not want to be doing any of this. And Travis, I want to start with this. Is Kizaru's will about to be broken? Like, is that where we're headed? Is he about to have like an existential crisis? Because Oda is laying it on thick that this is like eating away at the man. Or do you think he's too far gone?
I mean, again, my case for people wanting to humanize the admirals so much that they become likable is mostly cope. They are the copyist of cops. And Kizaru is the copyist cop of cops. So
I agree, but it just seems like, I'm not saying he's going to be redeemed. Like, don't get it twisted. But I just have this feeling he's finally just going to give up. And I don't know.
No, I think at this point, the point of all of this, whether it's the, don't let me hurt any more of my acquaintances. The point is that he's cold. It's not that this pains him too much. It's that he's going to be the one to do it. He's like, okay, this has got to get done. I'm going to be the one to do it. Let me at least do that much. But it's very clear that he is here to do the job. The end.
Okay.
Argument over.
I know what you're saying. There's the moment where he says, this is very difficult for me too. And he clearly is just like, he just wants to get this over with. And I have this feeling like Luffy is just making it harder because Luffy keeps getting in the way. And if it gets to the point where he did all of this, sacrificed this, did so many horrible things to his friends, only to get wrecked by Luffy, I could just see it just shattering something in the guy and messing with him almost. Because I don't know, or do you think we're going to get this thing where it's going to be a very quick escape because they can now lower the barrier? I don't know, because they now have the giant robot to replace the Vega Force 1. That problem fixed itself pretty fast. That's assuming that the giant robot even helps them. Though.
Yeah, giant robot solves problem is probably not that easy. I think we have passed the point of quick escape now. Things have become complicated. We talked about this a lot, the logistics of actually bringing the barrier down. And I think this gets more complicated now because, let's be honest here. Luffy is now in an injured state that he wasn't before. So that's going to be a factor in this and how long he can actually keep up the Gear 5th state, things like that. We still don't know what its limits are, for example. And he looks pretty scuffed up going through that barrier a couple of times. Yeah. And that being said, I think at this point we know where Kuma's going, right?
Egghead.
That would make the most sense. I think that's what we're doing because you have to remember, Kuma doesn't teleport. It's easy to think that he teleports because that's how it almost is depicted.
We talked about this before. Yeah, I think that was one of our prevailing theories was that he's climbing the red line to cross it.
To get over it, yeah, which seems to be the case. And what was happening was Oda was intentionally planting the seed of these parallels to throw us in that direction of why would Kuma go back? And the answer is he wasn't. He needed to get over the dang wall, which, given what we know about his powers, makes sense. So, given what we know about his powers, at this point, he's probably the way they get off the island. So if that is the case, I could still see quick escape being a thing. I don't know how they do that at this point with Kizaru in the mix, though. I do think that has to be settled. Rob Lucci, whatever, man. Whatever. But the fact that Kizaru can just jolt off that island potentially miles away and then jolt back, even if it's not light speed, because I know there's been some pedants about that. It's not really light speed, but it is the kind of power that can keep up with them potentially. And he is a one-man wrecking crew right now. He is literally just ripped through multiple Vegapunk conventions. So I'm on the fence about it being a quick thing here, honestly, just because Kizaru has to be dealt with. I don't think, even if he doesn't want to do this, even if it is an issue of he has a conflicted will or anything, that will's still going to need to be broken. He's still going to need to get beat at this point.
I mean, hey, that's where I agree with you. I think that's where we find some common ground because I feel like that's where this is headed. Oda's layering in too much characterization for the guy to make me think that he's just gonna do a skirmish kind of thing. But yeah, I see in this fight it's questionable, by the way, that first of all he's sweating when he sees the sun god Nika thing. So this is the thing you do. There it is. Which we can, wonder or speculate how much does he know about this stuff? Has the Gorosei made any of the admirals privy to the sun god Nika thing? I kind of doubt it. I doubt that they've given much warning at all. If they gave warning to anybody, it would probably be the Holy Knights, maybe. But yeah, even that might be skeptical or questionable. But you'll notice that when Gear 5th Luffy pops in, everybody's eyes pop out of their sockets, right? And so we see that same gag. And when he's fighting Kaido, right? Even the anime went with this. Kaido's eyes pop out as well. Kizaru's doesn't, right? Do you think there's anything to make of that or not? Do you think that is just because Kizaru is cold, as you say, or is it just overthinking?
I think it might just be simpler. Everybody else is looking at Luffy. I know that sounds like way too reductive.
He is turning
but
around.
Kizaru's back is turned. I think there's no way that it doesn't work on him eventually, right? Because Kizaru is a cold, kind of guy. He's kind of distant, but so is Kaido. Kaido was emotionally closed off completely.
Well, and it comes down to can your hockey disrupt the effects of Gear 5th? And does Kizaru have better hockey, or is Kizaru in a better state right now than yeah.
I think it's just a matter of paneling. I think come next week we're gonna see some more goofy impacts on Kizaru's body as Luffy kind of starts to get the fight.
You've been on the roll
properly.
with the prediction, so I'm going to go with you on that one.
It's just I that's how I would chalk it up to is just okay, he's got him. But when he first grabs Kaido, right, and we see this with the original gag, he grabs Kaido and pulls him, which doesn't happen here yet. I would assume it is going to. I think because we get the cut to the robot, that changes the way that the scene plays out, which is good. We don't want Oda completely repeating his tricks, right?
Yeah.
But I would be shocked to not see it work a little bit. I mean, the man can grab lightning. He should be able to mess with this guy. I would be shocked otherwise.
Agreed. I'm a little bummed that nobody did the photon gloves thing. I was hoping that would happen. Still could. We have time, but I don't know. I had a question about this, though. The giant robot shows up. The giant robot apparently wakes up because of Gear 5th Luffy, right? But why didn't it wake up when he went into Gear 5th against Lucci?
Okay. I've been thinking about this.
Was it the drums? The drums of liberation weren't on? Is it because he had to be big? And so it carried the sound farther?
Two theories on this. And they both have to do with physics.
Theory 1, Oda forgot. No, I'm just joking.
I was literally talking about this with somebody before we started doing this thing, and I literally said, Oda doesn't forget, right? It's not that he forgets, it's that he decides something doesn't happen, and then explains it in an SBS later like he didn't forget. But but if I had to put a pin on it, my first guess and primary guess is Luffy big, and that applies to everything. Because as we know, you and I both know from years of reading SBS, it always works on the organs. The power. Organs. I'm trying to be a little bit PG, but you know what it always works on. The devil fruit powers, they always work on it. So, since we know that, big Luffy, big internal organs. His heart is literally bigger and beating louder.
Yeah,
that is logic number one.
It's also thematically coherent, right? We're about to go to Elbath, the land of the giants. We've been getting all this information of actually the world used to be giant. That used to be normal. And this is a giant robot. And yeah, you could read a bunch of things into that connection there.
Big heart, big noise. Second theory. He fell all the way down. So where he fought Lucci was not where the robot was. But he fell, and he fell where the robot was. He fell all when he went through the barrier, through the phases. And so we know he had to use Gear 5th to get back in. Safe to assume that transition happened some point on the way.
I like that. That explanation is actually pretty... That's a good one. That's good.
Those are my two working theories right now for the logic of how this works. The answer is, of course, as always, it works because the story needs it to.
It works because it works.
It works because it works because the author said so. But if you have to ascribe some SBS logic to it, those are what I'm sitting at, and I think I would take either one. We don't know, for example, by the way, there's a lot of talk about, it's powering up. It's the power source. His eyes are just on. That don't mean nothing. All right. This could be a standby mode. It's the same eyes as Zunesha, but we don't know. This is the first implication that was a thing in the first place, that we were supposed to take something more from those images of Zunesha, other than him feeling alive. Some people have ascribed it to glowing now because we have the context of this robot, but the anime doesn't do that.
No.
So I think that, let's temper our expectations for what's going to happen here. I don't know that it's necessarily that the drums of liberation are a power source. I'm willing to be wrong here, but I think that it's a little bit more complicated than just heartbeat go and then robot go, because that almost seems too easy.
Well, I mean, it can't be the only thing that would power the robot, right? The robot was doing its thing. It was alive a few hundred years ago, as we were told, right?
Right, and
so,
the fruit had not awakened.
Right.
We do have that confirmed. So, yeah, but it could be a reserve, right? It could have lost power and
or it could have
gone
been
into
waiting.
reserve mode. Yeah, that's a good point. What if it turned off?
Yeah, and it was like
it
was hanging out with
assumed-
Toki, and Toki was just like, hey. Just wait until you hear these drums. I'll make it happen. Don't worry. I've got a whole plan. You know, it's airtight.
Yeah.
Toki is the Joker.
We don't. I mean, you got a good point there. The Toki,
We still don't have a
Toki's
good explanation for how
Toki's gun,
Toki was able
works.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
keep bringing her up no matter what.
No, that's completely fair. We do have other blue-haired women who are very important in the story. You know what I mean? But
that's a triggering sentence for somebody who's reading and all the way caught up with Mushoku Tensei. I will not explain to you why.
Oh, I'm so sorry then. But we don't know for sure that it like ran out of power, right? That's the assumption, but
Yeah.
they don't know what its energy source is. What do you know what to look for? What does an empty like you know what to look for with an empty car because you know what gas is, right? Like, and you have an indicator of that. Does it have an indicator on it? Does it? I don't know. No, I mean these are all different things that could be happening.
I just love how, like, in One Piece, like the idea of like robots and automatons is something that comes from history in their world, and that like Vegapunk seems to like really harness the science and technology around this around like something that existed in the past. Like, it's a very cool concept.
It's
Just bring that up.
It's kind of wild that like we've basically had like firm, honest to goodness confirmation, and this has been lingering over the story forever. But like Egghead early on brings to us this massive reveal that One Piece is a post-apocalyptic story.
Mm-hmm.
And like we have done nothing with that in terms of like really letting it sink in, have we?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the initial few weeks of people just being like, what? You know, this is Wheel of Time. Like, what are you talking about? Like, oh, it was a techno city or something. And I don't know. I feel like a lot of the clues were there. And since that kind of came about, I haven't seen a ton of great theory crafting because I think everyone's been so overwhelmed, you know, like the mainstream, I guess, One Piece people. Everyone's been so overwhelmed with how peak, you know, these chapters have been. Every chapter has thrown so, like, normally a lot of the theory crafting happens when we're in an arc like Wano, and you know, in the manga is like, and this is the chapter where Luffy gets poisoned at the prison of Udon. And you're like, okay, let's come up with a theory for something, because it's not that interesting. No offense to fans of the plague virus.
I mean, I feel for One Piece YouTubers all the time because we see it, we talk about it, we
exchange thumbnails.
What do we want to do? What do we? Yeah, we do.
Here's how they're going to try to feed their families this week,
right? Like, and we're talking about like, what do you want to do for this podcast? And we're kind of sometimes clutching for straws.
I feel like with us though, it's like, let's just talk about an anime. Like, let's just have fun and goof. But then sometimes
YouTube will not. YouTube would punish them if they pivoted like that.
Yeah,
which is so. I feel for it when it is like not this period of time, where you have a whole lot of theory crafting. But when it really when it comes to the Void Century, I think like just having that firm confirmation, like really connecting, because for a while it kind of seemed like the ancient weapons weren't really devices. Like we kind of knew that Pluton was a battleship. We had the context for that. And then you have like the twist with Shirahoshi that just throws everything into disarray. And so for a really, really long time, we've been talking about the weapons as people or as entities. And I think there's still a lot of validity in looking at it that way. But there is now this technological element that just completely throws just everything into disarray. Like, at this point, I'm beginning to question, like...
I'm pushing the Noah.
Yeah, like, you would think...
you bring it up.
I'm like, did they really use boats to get everywhere if they had this technology?
Well, that's the thing is like, what is the difference between the human society and the fishman society going back? Because you gotta wager that there's something big to come about like the different races and how they factor in with
Yeah,
all of this.
and you know, not to bring up my boy Artur too much, but like, you know, there has to be something that humanity had to come out on top, right?
Exactly. It's been kind of an assumption for a long time. The people like even since like the early days, people have been like, how do the fishmen, like considering how genetically superior they seem to be, right? Of like they can exist both underwater and on land. They're physically stronger and all this stuff, and yet they're persecuted. There's like a system in place to subjugate them. So yeah, I mean, there has to be something going on there in the past that eggs all of this on. No pun intended with our current arc. But yeah, I mean, clearly
it's not even just the fishmen though, right? You have
the minks.
The minks. You have the races of the Sky
Lunarians,
Islands, Lunarians, of course, which is a whole nother wrinkle on top of all of this.
Foxy,
whatever he is. I mean, geez, I'm gonna go on a tangent. What is up with like the half animal people in One Piece?
The half animal people? You mean like Mary?
Yeah, like if you the fact that they like completely replicated it in the live action, throws me because I just assumed it was a hat, and like
I did too.
Is it a hat?
Clearly, I bet Mary is just sort of like my father was a sheep. Yes.
This is what I mean, and then you think, well, the minks exist, so like this is feasible, right? But
I mean, there's plenty of isekai, right, where like demi, humans and stuff like that, like half, beastmen. I guess we haven't gotten a lot of like beastmen type races in One Piece like that. Have been called out
not without devil fruits, right? Yeah.
Like the Zoans, I mean, we have been sort of speculating a long time about the mythical Zoans, how they relate to things. The idea of like how the Zoans have like minds of their own. That's pretty relevant to this chapter. We're going off on all kinds of tangents. I'll bring it back to the chapter.
Right. Yeah. I was like, I'm gonna derail this by asking this question, but I got it now because it's on my mind. But going back to the robot, I mean, this is gonna pay off. I don't think this is like a red herring. I don't think this is like gonna happen and we're not gonna come back to it. This is gonna pay off. I have hopes for that. I'm just curious to see how it pays off. Does it get up and start fighting Kizaru too? Does it start attacking the ships outside? Like, again, I'm still thinking there has to be some sort of complication here that forces Garcia out of his boat. Like, there has to be something. This robot could do it. If, like, it starts decimating the fleet while Kizaru's, like, getting fought to a standstill. He doesn't have to lose, I think, to cause the situation, by the way. But like, it's worth noting that like Kizaru, regardless of his motivations, his biggest boss is like right outside and could just be like, all right, I'm done with you. We're done, and end him. I sympathize with that a little bit.
Well, again, with the accidental puns, but we are gearing up for an incident. Let's not forget.
It's true. Like something big has to go down.
Yeah. That robot perhaps being one thing. We're in a situation now, and this is what I want to happen. We have Bonnie is going to be pretty scuffed up and injured on the other side of the barrier. Possibly
I have a theory about that.
Where Kuma is going to end up or show up. And because if that's we're going to get our moment between the two of them, if he really is going to Egghead, that happening while Luffy is fighting Kizaru. And that's where I want Kizaru to basically start to like get his ass beaten basically, and have Luffy just sort of, like start breaking him down because he can't handle, the fight not going his way. Even if it's not a thing where like Luffy outright just like beats him physically, but just like frustrates him and makes this harder and harder for him and makes him just want to just stop. Or I don't know, but I just feel like the calm, cool Kizaru era is over. But okay, what's your theory on the thing?
I mean, you kind of hinted at it, but my working theory is Bonnie did not collide with that barrier.
She exploded and there's like a kid inside or something?
No, I'm gonna just throw it out there. Kuma arrives at the same time.
Okay.
And so like catches her would be that's your heartfelt payoff. Now, that being said, I'm still on team Bonnie, not Bonnie. So I kind of hope that's not the case.
Team Bonnie, not Bonnie? What do you mean?
That Bonnie's been replaced.
Oh
so to
yeah,
speak.
yeah. Oh, that's right.
Which we debate. I'm still
for
on
all
that.
for all your W's lately.
I'm on my high horse about that one.
That's
still,
okay.
so.
You got Snake Man right.
It just makes sense, right?
You called it. Well, you called the reasoning behind it. That was the most impressive part. But also, I was totally wrong about them like blowing up the barrier. And so, don't listen to me for predictions. I'm not. I retire from the prediction business. Frankie is also in the area. We presumably have him, watching over the Sunny. Oh no, you're laughing. Something happened.
The way you said that, just Frankie is also here.
Yeah, Frankie is ready to do something. I know you're frustrated that Frankie and Vegapunk have exchanged like 3 sentences, and it's distressing, is what it is. I think that we could continue to get payoff for that if Vegapunk somehow miraculously is with the Straw Hats on that ship leaving Egghead Island. Anything's possible. By the way, we do see Edison. He's not looking great, but I think it's like kind of softly implied the reason they were able to crack the code is because he showed up after his nap. And, I don't know why a robot has to like have bandages wrapped around his face, but he just does, which, that's fine.
Hey, Gear Fifth works on robots, we learned, because Atlas's eyes also pop out. So
that's right.
It seems appropriate.
Oh man, it's perfect. It's perfect. Yeah, because we see Nami's eyes pop out, and we see Usopp's eyes pop out. I don't see Alice in this panel though. Are you sure?
Yeah, she's in the back. She's behind the big Dawn.
Oh man, yeah, it was kind of like a Where's Waldo situation.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, it's obscured by the sound effect, but those eyes are definitely popping out, which is great.
Okay, brass tacks. Does Gear 5th Luffy beat Kizaru? Is it going to be a straightforward fight in that way? Or do you think it's what do you think goes down here?
I mean, he's got to go down. Like I can't shake that. Like, yeah, he either goes down or something very bad is going to happen.
Vegapunk dies.
Yeah, well, I mean, those two things can still happen. Kizaru just shoots lasers from his fingertips, right? Like Luffy's got to actually put some distance here, and keep that distance because he effed up here. Like if he was like 1 second later, it was over. So like Luffy's got to start adjusting for that. And if anything, that's going to maybe complicate this battle is like. Luffy isn't just looking to take down Kizaru. He has to prevent Kizaru from achieving his objective. Now, there is the chance that Kizaru decides to get cocky and he's like, well, I'm going to put this kid down right here, right now. And that throws everything off. But he seems too determined to do that right now. I want to say yes, though. If we're going to do the power scaling thing at this point, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be like a cakewalk. This is not a Rob Lucci rematch. This is going to be the fight of the arc, but I think he could do it.
What if
I can't not say that now?
What if the ancient robot shows up and Saturn sees it and tells Kizaru to come back and tells him to basically calls off the mission? Is that feasible? If Saturn is just like, we got to get out of here.
That would be weird.
I mean,
not like it's not feasible. Just that would be weird. Like what?
Is there anything that could get him to call Kizaru off, or to like come do something else to destroy that robot instead?
Giving them a chance to escape. That would be the thing, right? Is like I said, something has to coax him out. There's too many smoking guns here to not eventually create a situation where he takes control of the Pacifistas / the Seraphim. The robot could be it. If they're as old as we're kind of hypothesizing they are, he would know what it is, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so that's why I would think like Saturn would recognize the robot and perceive it as the real threat. Because what if it's way more powerful, way more dangerous for that robot to basically escape the island than even Vegapunk? Because if it has something to do with the Void Sentry and is an even bigger threat, I could see that.
Would he want to destroy it then, though?
I don't know, because I forget if like it's ever revealed if the robot like if they put it down or if Vegapunk was like
it shut off.
Well, yeah, because did they know that Vegapunk had this robot?
No.
That's
They
the thing.
don't.
Was the robot tied to, you know, the whole thing around like what Vegapunk researching the Void Century? Anything having
I think it's supposed to be. I think that's the implication.
York's research? They haven't really been they haven't really been investigating how York was able to come up with this mother frame stuff. And she was basing it off of something that Vegapunk was researching from this robot. And if some of the stuff we've been, speculating of like what's the secret room,
They didn't even think York did it. I think this is more of a York is using the Punk Records knowledge than necessarily York is Oppenheimer, right?
Exactly.
But the robot could run on the same thing.
That's what, it's like if it's just sort of like York kind of like copying their homework and then like weaponizing it. And if they realize that like this is where Vegapunk has been getting all of his like, knowledge or whatever. I don't know. It would have to be something
it's
that
proof, right?
Mhm.
It's proof to justify this expedition, if anything.
Sure. And if it's the kind of thing where they decide like this thing needs to be put down, I don't know. Could be totally
What if they decide it needs to be erased?
Oh, like Lucius style? It takes too long.
I mean, they've already sent twice a Buster Call, or like multiple times a Buster Call now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you mean just like start attacking the island, just blow everything up?
Something. I don't like. They want to preserve it. Like they want to preserve it. So like the robot. If the robot is that much of a threat, that could maybe justify an onside call, right? And be like, okay, delay that timeout. We're not saving anything. Get York out of there. That's it. End of conversation. We're blowing the thing up like that. If that robot's tough enough, I mean, it survived this long, but like,
yeah,
I
just want to know. We're gonna find out.
That would be weird. That would open up so many possibilities.
So yeah, we don't have to over speculate. Certainly, a lot of big questions we can still, get to eventually. We haven't talked about Akainu and the Kuma stuff that much. I didn't have a ton to say here. I mean, it's a lot of it's rehashing and reminder stuff. It's like, don't forget, Kuma lost his mind. He did this voluntarily. We're reminded of the food shortage going on in Marijoa. I think that's Oda very much being like, this is going to be very important information later because it's going to probably fuel stuff like if there's a Marine Civil War. And the Celestial Dragons basically if like the Celestial Dragons turn on the Marines even more forcefully, because we even have that last part where it's like, you let him escape, some fleet admiral you are, if something happens, with the Celestial Dragons, this is certainly stuff that's been provoking more and more hostilities and tension between those factions. But also, Akainu finally did something. We got to see Akainu do something for the first time in over a decade. No, let's not punch Kobe for dating his daughter. Not confirmed, but I still believe.
Once again, an old man leaves his room and the One Piece community rejoices.
Exactly. He gets off the phone. Grandpa, come out. Come outside. Kuma's here. Because for Reverie, where was he? I don't know. I totally don't remember if he did a single gosh darn thing during the Reverie stuff.
Basically, no. Like he was, like he's the guy issuing commands, right? Like this is literally the job Garp didn't want, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a reason Garp didn't want this job. This is it. A lot of people have read into the stuff that he says, that Sakazuki says to Kuma, and like they talk about it being projection and everything. I don't think Sakazuki is that like prescient to know that he's talking about himself. I think that's just us reading into that. Yes, it's supposed to be a parallel, but it's not like he knows this. He's not like intentionally projecting or anything. To
me, it's like I took it as just that lack of self-awareness.
Exactly.
And,
that seems more like our favorite war criminal here.
Mm-hmm. Because you said the copyist cops. I'm like, that's Sakazuki to me. That's a kind of
Sakazuki. Yeah.
Kizaru is like the kind of cop who like thinks he's better than he is, or is just sort of like, I'll go along with it, but I could be a good guy if I wanted.
Kizaru's quote unquote just following orders. Akainu is, I'ma shoot this guy.
Yeah, I mean it's sort of like the Nazis who were like, look, it wasn't personal. Whereas a
Right.
Kainu is just like, this is very personal.
Like, I
Actually,
enjoy this. In fact, he's a Christoph Waltz should play him in the live
yes,
action.
there it is. There it is.
There you go.
Is that going to be the end game for a Kainu? That would actually be pretty satisfying.
That would be satisfying.
Honestly.
I have thought about this though, because this is an interesting reminder of what of what the Holy Land has been through, the ordeals, and we got this whole army of knights there that we know about now, and they're celestial dragons as we understand it. So if this is another
at least
thing
one
I
of
was
them
workshopping,
Frieren
at least
Garling
one of them.
yeah.
So if I were a contingent of celestial dragon warriors, or if I was just the leader of one, I would still have the philosophy of the celestial dragons, right? So I would not want to get my hands dirty with anything, regardless of my power. If I have to get involved, something has gone wrong.
Yeah.
Kind of situation. And that's kind of where the Marines sit, right? Like, why should I get off of my chair and do a thing when the guy in the Hawaiian shirt has a job here? Like, as far as they're concerned, the Marines are also their slaves. Like, that's how they treat a Kainu here.
Yeah.
So these failures seem like a perfect opportunity for command to be handed over to Frieren Garling.
That's exactly where I was headed with this, because I think that we haven't talked enough, speaking of big revelations that the fan base has just been like still processing, is the idea of like, why are the celestial dragons calling the shots? Why are the Gorosei and like, why are the admirals so subservient? You have people like Frieren Garling. You have people who who have this amount of power and can actually back it up. Not just like the celestial dragons who are soft, right? And so like there is like a threat bigger than the admirals, and it has been seeded well enough to this point that we're headed there.
You'd be surprised at like what organizational structure does to people.
Yeah.
like Sakazuki's been completely like watered down by the concept of paperwork. Like, how wild is that?
There is something I wanted to bring up too about like when I was first thinking of reading this, and I saw like, okay, he's flying past the red line. So the idea that like he was just doing this to go over the red line to warp, it fits a lot of like, I think, assumptions people have made that like, oh yeah, you can't just go over the red line. There was a reason why like when the Straw Hats were all split up, none of them went to the New World. It wasn't just a convenience thing, right? It's just, like you can't go over the red line. I mean, how would that work? It's a lot taller than I think people understand it because of the way the scaling works in both the anime and the manga. But like, we have the numbers. This isn't just like a seawall or something. This isn't just like a mountain range. The way that like Oda sets this up is that it is like much higher. Like, think of like the wall in Game of Thrones and laugh at it. That's how high the red line is. And so the idea of like both climbing it and, having any sort of way to fly over it, right? Because this is a world where there are ways to fly. Doing so is just not simple in any way, shape, or form. So that's all fine. But here's my question, Travis. Why did he climb the part where there's Mary Joa? Like, why didn't he just warp like around it? Like, why did he have to do it like right where the city is, where he could get attacked and injured? Why? Could he not climb it anywhere else?
I guess the question. Is it this gonna sound stupid? Is it a straight line thing? Can he only do it in a straight line?
Well, that's the thing, is like, what are the chances that that's the straight line between where he was?
They want to be the center of the world, right? I'm spitballing. I'm going to answer this with another question. Do you think he's in there?
In there? And where?
Yeah. Do you think Kuma is in there? Like the man known as
like
Bartholomew Kuma? Is this just instinct? Like the last
keep going
vestiges?
Back and forth. I think that he has like a part of him that's left. It's the part that like guarded the Sunny, or like I wouldn't be surprised if it was something where like he knew he would become a robot and gave himself like programming. You know what I mean? Like, it's not really his mind anymore, but he's basically like a recording that is like regurgitating things that his intact mind told him to do, which would explain like, him telling himself to guard the Sunny and then him just doing that, and all that.
Might I offer the soul conversation again?
Soul? Oh boy.
Yeah. Not to say that like he's sentient. I think we're past that point. But to try to establish that maybe it's not, maybe it's just cold, like an instinct. At the risk of invoking My Hero Academia, it's like the last embers of the man who was once Bartholomew Kuma, like just instinctively doing something. And as a result of that, he's not thinking rationally, but thinking just with what's left of him. And what do we know about him? Well, we know where his daughter is, we know where his friend is, and we know that at one point he was in this land as a young boy. And at the end of the day, maybe that's just where his heart's pulling him. Just, I need to go through here, whether it's an act of rage, whether it's just, this is what he knows. I mean, I'm kind of leaning towards that being the case, is just like, this is, the last 21 grams of man, inside of him.
I'm not gonna lie, Travis. I mean, you're Travis. You're cold facts and logic, Travis. Going the sentimental route with it, sending tears down the faces of Discord users everywhere. I didn't know this was where you were at.
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember, I've gone on the show and like actively defended arcs like Drum Island as like some of the best exclusively on the Cry Factor, because that's where Oda puts the themes. He doesn't put them in the big action stuff. He doesn't put it in the Gum Gum logic. The themes are in these little emotional moments. So, I mean, sure, maybe Kuma's doing all of this because he has like lingering programming from a Void Century robot and whatever. Sure, that can be your explanation for the logic of it. And, like you said, I love doing that stuff. I've been a comic book fan forever. So yeah, I'm predisposed for it. But the why of something still needs to be there. And the why is still, this man is Kuma somehow. It's the only thing I can think of.
I'm just so ready for us to finally get answers on this.
Oh my God. Right?
I mean, we've waited so long. I mean, we've gotten answers to questions we didn't even know we had in this arc.
We've gotten answers to questions we didn't even know to ask.
Yeah.
After we met this man.
Exactly. And
I'm still trying to figure out where he got that Bible.
Well, Sunday school. But no, I definitely, man, I got to tell you, and I do hope that when we get to that point, I mean, Oda has always danced with a lot of like religious stuff, Christianity stuff in this show. Take a look around. There's a lot of it. Noah, we invoked earlier. But even honestly, like, I just want to pay close attention to how the OG admirals, how fixed upon they've been in this arc in a way that we've just haven't seen since Marineford, right? And, Kuzan, Kizaru, and Akainu, the three of them, so much attention being placed on them in a single arc, totally different locations, totally different situations and scenarios that are very much aligned to what those characters are going through. And I just want to put it out there that like, these are such good characters. They are despicable people. And I think that they're very complicated people, which doesn't take away from that. But absolutely, like, I am so glad that we are back on this, because they're characters who were introduced so long ago, especially Kuzan, and they're characters who I think that we just continue to treat as background characters, side characters, like obstacles to face later, instead of what they are, which I think they are storytelling devices, and all characters are that to an extent. But I think they are anchor points for Oda to really get to the heart of like how he sees the Marines and the pirates and everything that goes around and orbits that, very much in the same way that like the people that I talk to who've been watching the live action, who have been getting into One Piece for the first time, a lot of them a lot of commonalities I'm hearing in people's praise of the show and the things that they find interesting and that they like about the show is the complexity around pirates and marines, good pirates, bad pirates, good marines, bad marines, and people just respond to that viscerally. And so I think that it speaks so much to something that Oda has been doing all along. And that's my little admiral rant. I'm just so happy. No more Green Bull and Fujitora. We'll get to them. They're around, they're hanging, but they can go over there for now.
It's a good point. I agree with you.
Do we want to do an anime check-in for the new One Piece episode? I don't even know if you watched it.
I haven't even gotten a chance to watch it yet.
Travis, it's an all-time.
I gotta give it my attention. Is the thing. Like,
well,
I don't want to be working on something.
Then I need to end this conversation so you can give it your attention because no. So I'm talking about in the anime episode 1076. It is such a banger. I mean, it is just the animation style. I don't know if you're even caught up with this part of the anime in general. So I'm not going to say anything specific. I don't know what you know, but it's big. I mean, you can guess why.
Oh yeah.
And it's just.
Oh yeah. No, I'm mostly caught up on it, and I'm glad to hear that they nailed it.
They really nailed it.
I gotta be real with you. The fact that there's a new OP right now and it's so Wano flavored. I'm so scared they're going to follow this up with filler. I'm so scared.
Yeah, that's kind of. I mean, we're gonna get a little bit of filler at least, right?
Yeah,
5 or 6 episodes.
Like the Straw Hats hang out in Wano for 5 or 6 episodes at least, and then do like the last little bit where Green Bull shows up, and then
Zoro's gonna go to Ryuma's grave.
That would be. Do you know how funny it would be if they did that? Do you know how funny it would be? Like. Every
I could hear
manga
the poison.
only Zoro fan would absolutely burn their houses down in rage.
It's just people driving over like the Midwest, the American Midwest, and being like, why is that entire city on fire? Well, that's a One Piece town.
The riots that would ensue. Could you imagine the Zoro stands? Oh my goodness, that would be incredible. But yeah,
no, I think they are. You're right,
vibe. I do have the filler vibe.
They're gonna layer in. I'm almost certain they're gonna layer in like filler with like the banquet stuff, and like there's gonna be an episode where like Jinbei's officially on the crew. Do stuff that they couldn't, like slice of life stuff they couldn't do in the manga, basically. Because there are, I mean, look, I'm always open to it because sometimes the filler can be very gratifying. I've always liked the filler that does happen after new Straw Hats come on, like when Chopper and Robin kind of bond in that one filler after Alabasta, because it's nice. It's a nice breathing room, and I don't care about the anime more than the manga, so it's like it's fine. We have the manga over here, and it's nice, man. But Travis, what if there's a One Piece light novel? How cool would that be?
What do you mean there is?
No, I mean like for not just the Ace stuff, but like
it's like what do you mean?
No, like if they did like the main series in light novel format, they don't do that.
Oh, I see. I see. This is a segue, is what you're saying.
Canon. No, not a segue. Not a segue. Because I am still reading light novels and everything, but I'm not. I've been reading more manga lately to get ready for Frieren. Frieren's going to be coming out soon. And I have been hyping this up to you because, as I understand it, you haven't read any of the manga, right?
I've not. And
I'm just, I love it so much. It's such a good fantasy story. So Frieren's going to be coming. The anime is going to be premiering in like a week, not even a week, actually in a few days. I think it's September 20. No, actually, I think it's the end of September. So at the end of September, it's sometime. Who cares? I'll look it up.
It's like right before October.
Because I believe Berserker Gluttony is out October 1st, and I'm excited for that too. But I mean, it's not like Frieren is like a different story. Frieren is a manga that is September 29th. It is a manga. I'm gonna bring it up here, like the author and everything, because I don't want to get it wrong. But yeah, so it's Kanehito Yamada and Tsukasa Abe. It's called Frieren Beyond Journey's End, and it is this beautiful and like kind of just, it's like I don't want to call it a slow burn, but it's a subversive fantasy story about an elf, a young female elf, who, we catch up with her life where she is one of these characters who can age, who doesn't really age. and she lives a lot longer than her companions. And so the story is about how she outgrows the lives, like the people she grows close to. And so we kind of meet her, and like the story is, it's so like slow moving, and not a bad way, but like it sits still in sort of its own somber mood of like the idea of like how fleeting life is, but it isn't for her. And the whole thing with her character is that like her hobby is collecting magic from all over the world. And she went on this like amazing adventure with these heroes, and now all these heroes are gone and it's just her. And it like it's a story about like loneliness and isolation, and how there's so much loneliness in the fantasy setting. You have this whole chapter where she spends 3 months just doing ecological cleanup. There's a bunch of ships that have like, messed up this lake, and this guy comes up, he's very old, and he offers her in payment for spending 3 months using her magic to clean up their town, that clean up their water so they can just have a festival that looks nice. She accepts a book, and her companion is just like, that book's fake, isn't it? And she's like, yeah, but I don't care. Like, I'm doing this for myself. It's such a good story, Travis. It's so well written. The characters are so rich, and like Frieren is like such a totally different character than any other like fantasy story that I've read recently. Especially if people who are fans of like Mushoku Tensei. I know season 2 is going to be finishing its first core pretty soon, so it's going to be gone for a few months before we get to the rest of it. And Mushoku Tensei has been on a tear. It's been very good lately, anime, and I think that people like, I think this kind of like really well done fantasy that isn't isekai, that isn't, or at least isn't sort of like bargain bin isekai, where just, like Travis, I have been watching Am I Actually the Strongest, which I don't know if you have any thoughts on, but that is bargain bin. That's guilty pleasure. That's like, I'm here to have fun and so are you. This guy's using barrier magic to like create like an internet connection so his little sister can watch anime in a fantasy isekai. It's nonsense, but it's fine because we also have stuff like Frieren, which is super fun, and not super fun, I should say. It's super grand in its storytelling, and so yeah, I could not recommend it higher. In terms of the manga, I'm hoping the anime is great.
You're making me think of To Your Eternity in regards to those kind of like contemplations.
It's got a lot of To Your Eternity vibes. It's less, I think, experimental than To Your Eternity. To Your Eternity is definitely, of what I've seen of To Your Eternity, by the way, like, I don't know if it gets a little bit more traditional and conventional later on, but
To Your Eternity, not to spoil too much of the second season, but To Your Eternity throws the absolute wildest curveball at the end. So I wouldn't compare the two that much, but like the vibe of like that sense of like
it's the vibe,
immortality, right? And like the kind of loneliness and grief that kind of explores. It's like the serious episodes of Doctor Who. You have this character who's just seen it all, and like, what does that do to them?
And I usually don't like stories like that because I find them kind of just to be depressing. And also sometimes I find them to not really utilize the concept that well. Not speaking of To Your Eternity, but I'm thinking a lot of Western stuff that kind of deals with this topic. Like you have a show where it's like vampires.
It's a weird thing.
Vampires, they've been alive for hundreds of years. They don't act like it. They kind of just act like they're 27. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think fantasy does lend itself a lot to this. It's easier to do that because fantasy, you can like, there's this kind of implicitness that it's supposed to be like a pre-technology era in a lot of ways, and I think that helps a lot to like establish it as like time has actually passed kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Watch To Your Eternity. For my part, I'm gonna rant to you very briefly about 2 manga that I have not talked about on this show yet. This is gonna be one of my classic Shonen Jump rants. The first one is not a manga that ran in Shonen Jump, but I think is very, very good. And it is a manga called Takopi's Original Sin. Have you ever heard of this?
Say it again.
Takopi's Original Sin.
That sounds familiar, but no, I don't think so.
Almost certainly heard of it, but it is Okay.
Wow, me, Travis.
Almost telling you about it almost ruins it, to be honest. But
Really?
the premise follows this cute, adorable pink octopus alien creature who comes to Earth with the sole mission of making a sad child smile. And he has the unfortunate luck of finding one of the most miserable people on Earth. And it's this little girl who is just having a hell, just living through just some real miserable stuff. And he meets this girl, and in his desire to try to make her smile and happy, some crap happens. And it goes to a place that literally cannot be put in Shonen Jump. And not in like a berserk way, but in a much more grounded and our reality kind of way. The kind of stuff that, like, if I talk about it on this podcast in detail, we may run into trouble kind of thing. And that's not even the plot twist of this book. It's only like 6 or 7 chapters. It is wild. It is an emotional roller coaster. It's one of the best things that I've read in a long time. It came out a couple of years ago. And it's by this guy named Tizen 5. And the reason I bring up Takopi, a magnificent story, is that this guy was able to parlay that very big success into a Shonen Jump series called the Ichino's Family's Deadly Sins. Big, similar vibes. The premise of this manga is even weirder. This kid wakes up in the hospital with amnesia. His entire family is there, who also have amnesia. And
I've heard of this one.
You've heard of this one because it's actually a Jump. And as the story goes on, this kid is basically trying to figure out what happened. Not just how they lost their memories, but when they get home, he discovers that, like, his family before this incident, whatever happened, was effectively falling apart. It was in shambles. His room in particular, this is very early going, so I don't feel bad kind of spoiling this. His own room basically has him writing the words "die" over and over again, scrawled across every wall of his room. And each family member's room is locked, and it has a secret behind it. And so the story starts exploring this, and as a result, it starts exploring things like the dynamics of family. What we do to each other, both good and bad, what we can do for each other, what we don't do for each other, and how complicated those things are. It's doing something that I have never seen a Shonen Jump manga actually take the time to do. And I have no idea if it's good. For a while, I knew it was good, and it's doing gangbusters in Japan. So, like, his audience is there for it. They love it, and it's a really compelling story. But whereas Takopi has basically 2 big shocking things that radically shift the story, and then the story is over, this happens every 15 chapters or so in Deadly Sins. And we have reached a critical mass of these as far as I'm concerned. So this week, I literally, in bed reading it, because first thing in the morning, I grab my iPad and I pull up Jump, and I'm reading it Sunday morning. I literally exclaimed, "Oh, for God's sake!" And again, I don't want to say it's bad. In fact, I would heavily recommend it because it challenges things that even One Piece is afraid to challenge. The most recent arc, I don't want to get too much into the details of it, but the most recent arc is all about the perils of found family as a concept. Because those do exist. And so this series explores that in a way that seems believable. There have
been good stories. Like Shoplifters is a really good story about that, right? That's live action, but also a Japanese. That's a Japanese movie.
I think especially for like, you know, Japan cultures, especially with their youth, is very different than what we have here in the States. But I do think there's a sense of listlessness, and you know, stories have always had this kind of found family, so there's that similarity. And I think that this pulls on a very reasonable thread in this time, in this day and age. It's definitely worth reading, but God help me, I don't know if he's almost done writing it or not, but like, just to get to the point, man. I'm kind of like, we're maybe one twist too far, and there's a shark coming, and we might be jumping that shark. I don't know. We'll have to see.
We might be shown in jumping that arc. You're right.
Oh my gosh.
Before we end it here,
that was my rant.
Before we end it here, I'm not going to rant. I am going to mention that I am now caught up to Boruto the manga. I read Two Blue Vortex, the first chapter.
We're gonna have to do a whole. There's like a new one
ready
dropping tomorrow, my guy.
It's
like,
fine.
You're not even done.
I'm not ready to talk about it. I have not read the Minato one shot.
It's gonna have to be a whole episode. We're just gonna have to do a whole episode.
We've been teasing it too much, haven't we?
We got to get a couch though. We got to do this therapy style if we're gonna actually process your Naruto grief.
Yeah, we need a special guest too. Somebody who can connect with that just same like feeling of emptiness that I have because of Naruto or Boruto to be more specific. But yeah, the Naruto episode is what we'll have to call it, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be talking about One Piece chapter 1093 pretty soon. It's coming out, and we got the fall season is upon us. So we're probably going to have some break weeks coming up, some weeks where we are going to talk about anime, maybe Boruto. Hopefully we'll be doing some anime roundtables coming up soon. There, not just Frieren and not just Berserk of Gluttony, but there's some other new stuff that's going to be hitting the pipeline. And I'm sure I'm going to, find out what they are as they come out. That's usually what happens. I'm like, hey, I just heard about this. Now I love it. So until then, though, we'll be back soon. And actually, you know what, Travis, you're right. Am I Actually the Strongest should be our anime roundtable that's coming up. I would not subject the listeners to more than 5 minutes devoted to that isekai. But okay, thanks for listening, and see you. Oh, geez, Travis, the email. I forgot it. You only said it twice.
Shoot, where do I got? Here it is. Pull up my. Okay, so that's rookiepirateradio@gmail.com.
Thank you, Travis. You're the best. Link to the Discord in the show notes. We'll cruise with you all next time.